right, thank you very much, Joel. We'll hear from you a little later. The coffee chat is in session, and joining me this morning is Sunday Times journalist Zingisa Mvumvu. Good morning, sir.
It's a pleasure, sir.
I'm not going to ask you how it was getting up in the morning.
No, don't go there.
I'm not. Jeffrey Stevens.
Good morning, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Indeed. Let's get on with the business of what we are here to do. Gentlemen, the front page of the Cape Argus, Zingisa, I think it's quite apt. You first look at that picture. That's Madiba standing on the balcony there at the Grand Parade. That's the City Hall in Cape Town. And holding the microphone for him is our current president, Cyril Ramaphosa. And the headline, very, very nice and catchy, touch of Madiba magic. Ramaphosa to give address from spot where Icon gave first speech after his release. Now, the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, has been in Ethiopia at the African Union Summit, and clearly he's going to be back today, and at around 2 p.m., if I'm not mistaken, that's when he is going to give a speech today in remembrance of this significant moment. What do you think is going to be his message to the nation?
Well, of course, reconciliation is going to form part and parcel of that speech. But I guess, for me, what would be most important is how President Ramaphosa rises to the occasion and follow in the footsteps of former President Mandela.
You know, a lot of people have been using these words. He needs to rise to the occasion. He needs to be decisive. What exactly is expected of President Ramaphosa to do at this current moment in our country?
For me, it's decisive leadership. He needs to be more decisive than he's been in the past 2 years or so since he's been to office. But I understand that his and that of former President Mandela's time are not different. I mean, former President Mandela, the ANC was just coming into power. It was all united into this one vision of democracy. On the other side, President Ramaphosa, we know that he didn't win convincingly in Nasrec, and he still has to deal with the so-called RET forces who are pulling him this side and that side as he tries to make decisions. But I guess that cannot be an excuse, because now is the time to put the country forward and put the ANC at the back.
Jeffrey Stevens. Zingisa touches on a very good point here, that the president coming into office, the ANC office, back in December of 2017, he didn't have a good majority. It was a slim majority, in fact. And he mentions your so-called RET forces. These are people basically who support the now former president Jacob Zuma. In my intro there, I made mention of this grouping that's calling itself the JZ supporters, and they're calling not just on the ANC structures but the public at large to defend the former president Jacob Zuma. A sign of the times?
Look, I think
in the ANC specifically,
I think we can't deny the fact that the ANC seemingly for the longest time has always operated on the basis of having factions within their party. And up until very recently, the most dominant faction, whichever one it was, managed to subdue the other factions within the party. Now we are seeing the dominant faction showing more prominence and causing more division within the ANC, which is confusing a lot more of us regular South Africans, because from the one speaker you get that message, and from the president you get a message that is maybe not in tune with what one of his lieutenants have spoken about a day or two ago. And therefore, this confusion for me and for regular South Africans cannot continue if we are to get out of the slump, the economic slump that the country finds itself in, and move to a place. There's so much potential within this country, and we need just to realize that if we don't get to the place where we can happily work together towards a common goal, we are going to go further downward in this downward spiral.
Zingisa, if there was one element that you are most looking out for on Thursday when the president delivers the State of the Nation address, and we are now segueing nicely, because he is actually going to be stationed in Cape Town from today, it would seem, and the front page of the Pretoria News has quite an interesting headline. It says, SONA threat, no worries, and the headline just below that says that Parliament has no plans for extra security, despite EFF warning it will disrupt speech. Before we talk about threats of the speech, an opinion piece by the business leadership leader, that's Mavuso. Her name escapes me now. But she's been very vocal. I think she was in Davos at some point. And she is very clear. In fact, she mentions in her caption that the speech that the president is going to give this week, State of the Nation, is probably just as important as the one that Madiba would have given in 1994, and that calls for decisive action on the part of the president. So if there was one element that you're looking out for from the president to make on Thursday, what is that one thing?
Yeah. Well, I guess the national crisis at this point in time, Xoli, is the unemployment, particularly among the youth. 54% plus of the youth are loitering the streets, not having anything to do. So for me, what matters the most on Thursday for the president is to announce concrete and clear plans about how he plans to reduce unemployment, and that ties with growing the economy, because for you to create jobs, the economy needs to be growing. So, I mean, really, in the past 2 years or so, for me, all the president has been doing is talking and talking and talking. I think now is the time to have concrete and clear plans of how he is going to reduce unemployment, at least by 5% within the next year or so.
You know, you remind me when you say the president, what he's been doing is talking. You remind me of the conference that was organized by business, who said, enough with the platitudes. It's time for actually rolling up our sleeves and putting into action what has been said. And perhaps it leads us to that very headline of the Pretoria News. The threats being made by the EFF. If there is a disruption, it's going to be the first we see under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa. What do you think, in your mind, will it signify? And importantly, do you think the EFF has the pulse of the nation when they do this? Because I suspect that back then, under the Zuma presidency, they had some sympathy from the public for doing what they were doing. Will there be credibility in what they're doing this time around?
Well, the EFF, it's quite interesting that this time around, if I do remember very well, previously under former President Zuma, they have never really announced that they would be embarking on such, things of disrupting the SONA speech. But nonetheless, they did this time around. I think the EFF, they are quite strategic. They read the political winds very, very carefully, and that's why they didn't do anything in the past two SONAs of President Ramaphosa, and that is why they're doing now. But what worries me personally about the politics of the EFF in this regard, Xoli, is how they personalize politics. Now the issue is about Minister Pravin Gordhan. And you'd have to wonder and ask why. Why Minister Pravin Gordhan in particular, and why now? And why do we individualize? Because for me, really, as South Africa, we have to move away from this thing of individualizing our problems and hoping for messiahs in terms of one individual that is going to sort out our problems. Because I do believe that, for instance, let's go back to the era of former President Zuma. Everyone is blaming him, but what about those who were in government and aiding him? What about ANC, for instance, when they supported the ad hoc committee that was illegal in Parliament, as we were told by the Constitutional Court? No one is talking about that. We're talking about one individual. And those, for me, are the politics of the EFF. Now they are blaming Minister Pravin Gordhan for everything that has been happening at ESCOM and all the SOEs. But what about the people that are there within the system of the ANC? What about the people that were there within the past 9 years or so when these SOEs were run into the ground?
Thursday is going to be the day to watch. Jeffrey Stevens, what's happening in the sports pages?
Yes, quickly, the Sowetan Sport headline caught my eye. FIFA ruling may strip Chiefs bare. This refers to yesterday's ruling coming from FIFA, where Kaizer Chiefs were banned for the manner in which they acquired the services of Andrea Mirado, Andriana Rimanana, also known as Dax. This deal happened in December of 2018, and apparently since that time there's been no payment to his former club, Forza Juniors. We have, subsequent to yesterday's announcement from FIFA, heard that Kaizer Chiefs, the club, their latest statement on the matter, they were given time to appeal. They have decided to appeal this decision, but this particular article gives you an idea of the ripple effects that if they were to be unsuccessful in the appeal of this judgment, how it would impact on Kaizer Chiefs and their current squad and squad going forward. So fans of the team and of football in South Africa, read all about it in the Sowetan Sport today. Not looking good for Kaizer Chiefs.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Sunday Times journalist Zingisa Mvumvu, thank you very much for making the time
It's a
to speak to us here. Jeff, you and I are in it for the long haul.
Till later, sir.